Luis had always considered himself prepared for anything. Living on the frontier colony of Arcturus 7 meant expecting the unexpected. Harsh winters, equipment failures, supply shortages. But nothing in the colonist's handbook prepared him for finding a werewolf girl bleeding out on his kitchen floor. The alarm had jolted him awake at 300 hours. His home security system, military-grade and expensive, screamed about a breach in the West Wing. Luis grabbed his plasma pistol and moved through the darkened corridors of his homestead, every sense on high alert. The Arcturus frontier was no place for carelessness. Raiders, wildlife, or worse, rogue AI drones. Any could spell death for a solitary colonist. What he found was none of those things. She was collapsed near his food storage unit, one clawed hand still reaching toward the sealed door. Her form was caught somewhere between human and wolf, a grotesque, beautiful nightmare of fur, flesh, and fang. Blood pooled beneath her, dark and viscous in the blue emergency lighting. Her breathing came in shallow, desperate gasps. "Jesus," Luis whispered, lowering his weapon slightly. Her eyes snapped open, golden, intelligent, terrified. She tried to scramble backward, but her body wouldn't cooperate. A pained whimper escaped her throat. Luis had heard stories about the werewolves. Every human colonist had. They were the galaxy's mistake, an engineered species created by the Vryn Collective as shock troops in their endless wars. When the collective fell, their weapons were abandoned. The werewolves, intelligent but cursed with an insatiable metabolism and monthly transformations, were left to fend for themselves across 100 hostile worlds. Most species wanted them dead, quarantined, eliminated. But Luis had always believed humanity was different. "Easy," he said, holstering his weapon and raising both hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't believe him. Why would she? Her kind had been hunted, enslaved, experimented upon. Trust wasn't something werewolves could afford. Luis moved slowly to his medical kit, pulling out a trauma seal and coagulant spray. "You're bleeding out. If I don't help you, you'll die. If you attack me, I'll defend myself, but I'd rather we skip that part." Her eyes tracked his every movement. When he approached, she growled, a sound that rattled his bones and reminded him exactly what she was. "A weapon, a predator, a person." "Yeah, I know," Luis said, kneeling just outside her reach. "Big, scary human. But you broke into my house, so we're both taking risks here." He slid the medical supplies toward her. "Do it yourself if you want. But you're losing a lot of blood." For a long moment, she simply stared. Then, with a shaking hand that was more claw than finger, she reached for the trauma seal. Her movements were clumsy, weakened. The seal slipped from her grasp. Luis picked it up and met her eyes. "Let me." Something passed between them, an understanding fragile as ice on summer water. She didn't move as he pressed the seal against the deep gash in her side. The coagulant hissed and foamed, and she jerked, teeth baring in pain. But she didn't strike. "That'll hold," Luis said, sitting back. "Now, food." He opened his storage unit and pulled out a month's worth of protein rations, synthesized meat that tasted like cardboard but contained everything a human body needed. For a werewolf's hypermetabolism, it might buy her a day or two. He set the packages in front of her. "Eat." She stared at the food like it might be poisoned, like kindness itself might be the cruelest trap. "Look," Luis said, opening one package and taking a bite himself. "See? Safe. Tastes like garbage, but it won't kill you." She moved then, a blur of desperate hunger. The packages were torn open, their contents devoured in seconds. Luis watched, both fascinated and horrified by the sheer need driving her. How long had she been starving? How far had she traveled? When the last package was empty, she slumped against the wall, her form beginning to shift. The fur receded, the fangs shortened. Within minutes, a young woman sat where the werewolf had been, thin, exhausted, and impossibly vulnerable. "Eva," she said, her voice hoarse. "My name is Eva." "Luis, why?" Eva asked, and the weight of that single word carried a universe of confusion. "Why help me?" Luis considered the question. It was a good one. The smart play would have been to call the authorities, let them handle it. Werewolves were trouble, everyone knew that. Feeding her meant harboring a fugitive. Protecting her meant making enemies of every species that wanted her kind extinct. But Luis had left Earth for a reason. He'd come to the frontier because he believed in something the core worlds had forgotten. That civilization wasn't measured by its technology or its power, but by how it treated those who had nothing. Because you were starving, he said simply. And I had food. Eva's eyes glistened. They'll kill you for this. When they find out, let them try. Luis stood, offering his hand. Come on, guest room's down the hall. You need rest. She took his hand, her grip still possessing that inhuman strength even in human form. I can't stay. It's not safe. For you. Probably not, Luis agreed. But tonight you sleep somewhere warm. Tomorrow we figure out the rest. Eva followed him through the homestead, her steps uncertain. She kept glancing back as if expecting betrayal at any moment. But Luis simply showed her to the spare room, provided clean clothes, and left her with a simple good night. As he returned to his own quarters, Luis accessed his terminal and pulled up the galactic news feeds. Reports of werewolf raids, werewolf attacks, werewolf savagery. The propaganda was thick and relentless. But Luis had met Eva. He'd seen the intelligence in her eyes, heard the gratitude in her voice. She wasn't a monster. She was a person who'd been dealt an impossible hand and was fighting to survive. If that wasn't human, if that wasn't worth protecting, then what was? The galaxy thought humanity was soft, that their compassion was weakness, that their refusal to abandon the helpless made them prey. The galaxy was about to learn otherwise. Luis smiled grimly and began typing. He knew people, other colonists, sympathizers, idealists who believed in something better. If Eva needed sanctuary, humanity would provide it. If she needed an army, humanity would stand, because that's what humans did. They didn't abandon the broken. They fixed them. They didn't turn away the starving. They fed them, and they sure as hell didn't let anyone, Vryn, Council, or cosmic fate itself, tell them who deserved to live. In the guest room, Eva slept for the first time in weeks without fear, and on the Arcturus frontier, humanity's legend grew a little larger.